to another edition of Rapid Fire with me, your host, Wolvie. And today I am here with Rose, aka Mango Smasher. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Excited to have you on here as episode number, I've got to check the board, 15. So nice. we're cracking through the episodes now. As we always do with this, the first thing we do is get the Rapid Fire Challenge done and dusted, see how quickly you can post. Tom, in episode 13, still leads the way with 1 minute, which is a quick old time, but I know you've watched every episode. I know you've been raring to go.
Definitely raring.
So we'll start with that, and then we'll just flesh out some of that and talk about your life in the hobby.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So, well, without any further ado, we will get straight into the hobby challenge. So,
definitely.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Fantastic. So, your time will start now. How many years have you been in the hobby?
18.
What game systems do you follow?
All.
What are your current armies?
All.
What was your first miniature?
Gobbos.
What was your first army?
Gobbos.
What model or unit have you enjoyed painting the most?
Brass Scorpion.
What model or unit have you enjoyed painting the least?
Gilliman.
What was the last model you completed?
Frostfang Cavalry.
How much hobby time do you get per week?
80 plus hours.
What is the current model you're working on?
All.
What is your single favorite thing about the hobby?
Community.
What is the least favorite thing about the hobby?
Community.
Who or what got you into the hobby?
Mental health.
What keeps you in the hobby?
Mental health.
And name one hobby target for the rest of this year.
Complete 20,000 points of Night Haunt.
That's your time.
Nice.
Now, before I announce, usually I wouldn't accept the answer all. However, you literally do it all.
Yes, I do.
So I have to accept it. I know that, you know, the game systems you follow is everything from Kings of War, Warhammer, and a few other, obviously, bits and pieces like that. You've literally done so many different types of models that it's unreal, and we'll get into that shortly.
Definitely.
But with Tom's time being 1 minute, your time was 53 seconds. So you are going straight to the top of the leaderboard, which is quick. Like I say, I know some of the answers were all, but it is genuinely true in your case.
Yes.
As it was literally one of the first questions I've got on my piece of paper here is, you've got such an array, like so many, like one post you're painting, you know, something that's Nurgly, then the next you're painting something that's Age of Sigmar, you've got Eldar, Necron, Space Marine, you've literally got it all.
Yes, I own all 40k. I own all, the only army I'm missing from AOS is Lumineth Realm Lords. I have a pure Forge World Thousand Suns army for Heresy. I then own with Kings of War, I own 6 different armies from there. One of them being the Northern Alliance, it's 25,000 points. I then have D&D miniatures from Epic Encounter. I've dibbled in the Bolt Action, Conflict 47. So I've been doing a lot.
I can see that. So when did you win the lottery to afford all of that?
So this collection has been the past 4 years, and the total miniature count inside the actual paint room is 7,636 miniatures.
I saw this because obviously you did this as like a competition. Yes. And I think the last time I saw, like, you did like a count update, and it was like 5,000 and something at the last one that I managed to see. So that's a lot of miniatures. I mean, I've probably got less than 1,000 in my personal collection. So for you to have like 7k plus is insane. You collected that in just 4 years.
4 years.
How?
Not eating.
That's brilliant. I mean, and so obviously it's all part of this studio you're currently putting together and things like that. So update me on that. How's that going? I saw the tour, and if you want to see the tour, obviously the building, obviously head over to Mango Smash's Instagram. It's available.
Yeah, so it's going well. We've currently got both rooms now fully set up. I'm currently in the main room where we actually have a 8 foot by 4 foot gaming table that I'm actually using the whole of the PC as a temporary setup. Because the other room needs a huge deep clean. I've been sorting out orders this week to get shipped out, and I kind of trashed it, figuratively speaking, we'll call it. There's plastic everywhere, and I've got to go through it all, tidy the desk. But yeah, so the move's going really well. Everything's going to plan, so I couldn't be any happier, really.
You've got yourself kind of deeply involved in miniatures in a relatively, shortish time. Obviously, I know your time in the hobby's been quite large. You said obviously
yes,
time, but really in the last kind of couple of years, you've really dug in and really got into all sorts. You've got
definitely.
Your Twitch hours. I saw about 4,459 hours watched in 2020 and 788 hours broadcast. Now, I don't use Twitch, but I guess that's a lot.
So I used to have my old schedule back last year and the year before was around about 6 hours Monday to Friday. Now I've actually updated the schedule since being in the studio, and we started the new one last week. That is midday till midnight Monday to Friday. So yeah, there's a lot of hours going in.
That is a lot of hours. How do you come up with stuff to fill it so it doesn't feel stale? It does, I don't use Twitch, so unfortunately I've not seen these streams. I've tried to use Twitch. I don't know what I'm doing. Lost. But how do you mix up the content and stuff like that?
So one of the things I do is I do a thing called streamer versus streamer. So this is where myself and various other members of the community, we basically will be on the stream. So one of the latest ones we've got, I have one coming up with a streamer who lives in Canada, where we're painting an army in 12 hours, no airbrush, just pure brush. And yeah, I saw
that issue, that challenge being issued, and I saw the trash talk, which was decent. How did that come about? Because Kings of War is obviously it's a different system in their points, but that's still a lot of models.
Yeah, so myself, I have 201 miniatures to paint. So the other guy actually has 140 something, so he's already got a head start on me. But so essentially it's something we myself and the team's been doing now for about 3-4 years, where we'll just be on a stream and just say, I know, cool, let's just challenge you. We'll just call them out on the stream, and someone from our streams will go to, hey, you've just been called out, look, you got to go do this, like, come on, sort of thing. So it's sort of like we call each other out as sort of a little joke. Then we do it, as you said about trash talking, we do that for a laugh, really, to build the anticipation up. So like I'll go onto his channel, start trash talking him in front of all of his chat, and he'll come over and do the same to me. So it's good for me, and I know for the person, I know for other people that have joined in with us, it's a nice sort of way to make things a bit different, where we're bringing more and more people into the hobby. Currently with the Kings of War one, we have over 90 people painting along with us. So we time into paint alongs. So that's one of the things we do. We also do time challenges. So essentially, here's an army. I have 12 hours to paint it, or how many miniatures can we paint in 12 hours? So at the minute, my total is 260 miniatures in 10 and a half hours before I had to stop.
So is that using normal paints, or is that using like contrast? You like to use a mixture?
I personally, I actually don't like contrast, so I don't use them. So I go base layer, wash layer, highlight, and then wet blend as well as occasionally.
I mean, that's still a lot of models, even if you're doing what they call battle ready, a tabletop. Yeah. That's a lot, 260, and I can't imagine ever being able to reach those numbers. I probably won't be calling you out anytime soon.
Because that was actually done on the day before the release of Indominus as well. By the time Indominus actually got released, I had been streaming just over 27 hours. So I long hours, high model count is sort of like my thing. And over the past 2 years, I've sort of taken on that sort of go big, go home sort of thing. And that's sort of like the motto now for me is like go big, go home, just do it. Anything less than an 8,000 point game is something I don't tend to play. So it is a good fun, but there is a lot of work involved with it because of obviously putting it all on display, having it all stored properly. So I actually use heavy galvanized racking. That has each shelf has a 65 kilo weight just to store the stuff on. So yeah, there's a lot that's been going on, and really just doing the challenges, having a laugh with other streamers, going head to head, is the main thing that keeps everything different. We go into different topics as well. But yeah.
So on the streaming side, you've also done some. I saw you took part in like a paint and raise challenge as well.
Yes,
which was obviously supporting charity for young people's mental health.
Yes.
Have you done more charity? Is that how's that one come about?
So I was offered to join that by a very good friend of mine who's also on Twitch, and we essentially started up the group. So like there's with obviously moving to the studio at the minute. I haven't really been able to do much, and with other personal situations coming into play, it's been a bit, because I did actually have one planned, and unfortunately had to pull it back, obviously due to the move and stuff. But apart from that, that's the only. I've been involved with other ones, whether it's like a paint along, promoting them, essentially on like when I'm streaming, say, hey, if you go check this person out, they're doing a charity stream, or if I finish and they're still going, cool, I'll raid into them, send everyone that way. So even if I can't participate in it, I still try and support them the best I can. And that's really the main thing. But hopefully, going to try and get back on, do some more of the charity streams as well.
You've built. I mean, you're pretty good at building relationships with other hobbyists and bringing people in. I think that's I think that's really clear. We spoke off camera about obviously some of the relationship you've got with people like Tanya, former obviously guest on this show.
Yep.
You've got a good relationship now with people from like mini wargaming, which when I came back to the hobby, 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was, mini wargaming with a channel that I watched almost religiously. I've branched out now and I've watched a whole variety of them, but obviously the guys over there still remain somewhat hobby heroes, particularly Dave Chaos Dave.
Definitely.
How was all that come about?
So I was streaming one day, and I was doing my standard, doing a free commission for someone. They've basically came in and just goes, oh, yeah, I had heresies, all sort of thing, having a little mess about. And we just started talking, and I recognized it, essentially the Twitch name. And I was like, oh, I've been following you guys for like 5-6 years now. Like, I've been following your whole journey and everything. And like, you guys should be really proud of what you do. And they gave me a shout out on their Twitter. And I just basically turned and said, you didn't have to do that. Just being here is like more than enough. And then next thing I know, I went from 378 followers on Twitch to 2.8 thousand in 24 hours.
Big jump.
Yeah, it's a very big jump. It was a very emotional day, very emotional for myself and for the team and Dave. Excuse me. And at the same time, we ended up having to bring in 6 more mods just to handle it. And at one point, we doubled the viewers of Games Workshop themselves. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, it was just me just doing my standard, doing my free commissions, and really just having a laugh with the team and just really chilling out. Really, that was all that was done. But yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Dave and the team. Definitely, if it wasn't for what Dave done, I wouldn't be here in the studio. I wouldn't have got as far as I did. So. But yeah, it was an emotional day, to say the least.
Yeah, no, I think that was clear to kind of everybody, who saw it. And I think they've done perhaps one of the most amazing things, and something that even Games Workshop didn't think of, in terms of like their bunker. like go and stay and play games. You know,
Yeah.
imagine. Obviously, we could do something like that here in the UK. Can you
Oh,
imagine a
definitely.
Warhammer world where you could stay and you can play games in like themed rooms and stuff like that? I mean, how
Definitely.
awesome would that be?
I'm very lucky because of where the studio is. We've actually got 7 hotels all around us. We're right next to the city centre, so you can get off the train, have a 5-minute walk, and you're here. There's the first one I did was, it's really bad. I looked up takeaways, 197 takeaways in a 5-mile radius. I was like, okay, I'm sorted. So like we've sort of got a relatively really good location, and we're next to a games workshop that's only down the road. We've got a few local gaming clubs. So yeah, it's been it was emotional. It definitely was.
Yeah, that's something that kind of, I suppose, varies area by area in terms of like the amount of gaming clubs and stuff available. You know, there's only kind of, I suppose we've got 2 or 3 games workshops within like maybe a 30-40 mile radius where I am, and maybe kind of 3-4 gaming clubs. It's not a huge amount. No. But obviously it does depend. If you're more central to a city, you're going to have more. And in terms of takeaways where I live, I'm so far in the sticks, I've got a total option of 2. I can literally have a Subway, or I think it's an Indian, delivered to my door. That is it.
It's not too bad then.
It's not too bad, but you know, could be better. So do you find yourself drawing from those kind of groups and stuff, like drawing like followers and stuff, bearing in mind they're local?
Weirdly enough, only my local game workshop and like a few of the veterans, when it was veteran nights, obviously prior all of this lockdown stuff, and we used to have the vet nights. Apart from that, no one actually really knew who I was. So it was quite amusing. So I went down to my local, and as soon as I walked in there, everyone knew who I was, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're so and so." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just coming to buy paint. Just calm," sort of thing. But it's nice as well to be recognised at the same time, just because of the amount of like work I've been putting in. Like I put in as much work as anyone does, but it was just essentially, as I say to people, right place, right time, and it could have happened to someone before me or after me. It just happened to happen to me. But yeah.
But you're no less deserving of it if you're putting in 12-hour streams and obviously the work that you and the others put in. There's no less deserving of it. So let's go all the way back then. Let's go right back to the very first time you saw a Warhammer miniature.
Yes.
What grew your attention? What made you look at it and go, "Oh, I want some of that"?
So basically, it was back when I was 9 years old. I was basically in town with your parents, as you normally do. And we were walking around, and I saw her. I was like, "Oh," and I saw someone painting, and I found it very relaxing and sort of soothing. Because at the time, I still am suffering with mental health problems, and conditions. And I just went in, done a tester model. And back then it was the Night Goblins with the old spear and shield back in the day, and never looked back. Never really looked back. And
so obviously that's more obviously old world, if you will. What then crossed over to 40k? Were you one of those where you were playing a game and you looked over and you go, "They're firing guns over there"?
Actually, for me, it was more the aesthetic of the Eldar. My first 40k army was Eldar, and it was Swooping Hawks, Dire Avengers, and I just like the theme of them, the feel of them. I felt it was very, very artistic sort of thing, and just went from there. And then growing from Eldar to Chaos, bounced back to Eldar, went back to Tau, went to Tau then, and went back to Chaos, and then went to Marines, then went to Scutari, then went back to Marines. And it's sort of like over the years, it's pretty much went like that with both systems as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does for all of us, because, as somebody like me who's been in the hobby for about 21 years now, I think about like all the armies I've collected, I think I've basically almost collected them all within like somewhere, whether I've had like, you know, a 500 point or you know, loads of them. I'm like most hobbyists, I've had most of them, but I'm with you on the Eldar. The Eldar are one that I'd always kind of just left and thought, oh, they're not for me. They look really complicated in terms of like rules and stuff like that. And then this year sold off the Space Wolves, and I was like, maybe they're a little different. Everything else I paint is really dark and gribbly. So I'm going to go for some Eldar, just paint them as bright as hell. What color scheme did you go for your Eldar?
I done mine, so I done quarterly. So essentially one leg was green, the other leg was blue, and then reversed it on the top half. And then the helmets, I actually used female cosmetics for. So I actually used glitter dust. That's essentially for your nails. So it's essentially glitter, and I've got that all over the helmets. And I also use
that twinkling star effect.
Yes,
that is outstanding.
And I also do it on the top of my War Walkers and my Farseer and Warlock cloaks.
Huh. You've given me some food for thought there.
Just like another product I use is, so you've got like obviously the chameleon paints and color shifts and that. I'm not a massive fan of them, so I went out my way and found chameleon / broken glass nail flakes, and I use them on all my weapons for my Space Marines.
That is thinking outside the box. That is like, apart from using obviously like makeup brush sponges for weathering, I'd never even considered that like you could just pick up some makeup. Brains didn't even go there.
No, it's one of those ones where it's a bit out of the box. And obviously dry brushes, I actually use makeup brushes for those.
A lot of people do.
For my mold lines, I actually use nail files or buffer pads or whatever they're called. I actually use those as well.
Like the emery board ones? The wooden ones or the...
The little wooden ones. Okay. So I actually like venture out quite a bit. I've got a set of files that's specifically designed for metal that I use as well. So it's I go outside the box a lot.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think that's something that, you know, everybody can learn to do a little bit more of. You know, there is more than just, you know, the classic Citadel paints, although I'll put droppers, but there is more than just their own stuff. Like, feel free to go out there and try other stuff, try other brands. But apart from using the brushes and sponges, that's the first time I've ever heard of somebody using glitter dust.
It's an interesting effect. It definitely isn't a lie.
I think I might have to look into that. And if the other half asks me what I'm doing, I'm just gonna I'm just trying something new.
Why not? It's the best way to explain it, probably.
It's the shortest way. So you've got a whole host of models and hobby possessions. You've got books signed by like Dan Abnett. You've got all sorts. What is your prized hobby possession?
Mine would be an entire collector's edition with the limited edition books from 8th edition, all codexes and a rule book in mint condition.
I mean, that's pretty impressive to get all those.
So that's my sort of like, for a book wise, that's my most valuable. But for a model wise, it's actually the Brass Scorpion from Forge World, because that was the first ever Forge World model I bought and the first I ever painted. So it has a lot of sentimental value.
I think it would do. Sometimes those models that are the first you buy from somewhere carry a little sentimental value. Like
definitely.
The first model I bought from Warhammer World, I know what it is. It's pride of place in it, and it sits up there. So it's weird, isn't it? Because like I've been back to Warhammer World about a few more times since then and bought stuff, and I can't really remember what it is or anything like that. But that first one, pride of place.
Definitely.
It's fascinating how we as humans work sometimes. So
definitely is.
In terms of painting, like versus mental health, the benefits. Now I work in a stressful environment, so I'm quite an impatient person. My other half always says to me, I don't understand how you can sit there and paint for hours and you don't seem like you've got anywhere, yet you're really patient with it. Yet you're behind a driver that takes 5 seconds to pull off at traffic lights and you're swearing. Like, what is this? And I try and say it's completely different, but it must be the same for you.
For me, myself, so I suffer with quite a few mental health conditions. And for me, I find it very relaxing, very sort of soothing and calming, whether it's 1 miniature for 12 hours or 260 for 10. For me, it's one of those things that I can help fill, so essentially fill a void. So then I don't fall back on previous behaviors and stuff. So it's sort of one of my ways of a coping mechanism to help me keep essentially grounded, and keep my mental health in check.
I think that's the same for a lot of us. I've got like a severe anxiety, as well as a form of PTSD that not a huge amount of people necessarily would recognize on the surface. And when I was really young, I sought things like comic books. I've got like a whole Batman sleeve of like tattoos and stuff. I'm a massive, all the comics and stuff are over there. I've got like huge Batman fan, and obviously, but Warhammer is almost like a different level for that, because there's so many different things. Like I can lose myself in the lore if my mind wants to focus on that. You can lose yourself in a paint. If you've got a game day, you lose yourself in tactics and deployment and moving and shooting. And for 6 hours, anything that was bothering you suddenly doesn't, and it's
completely gone. Definitely. For me, mainly it helps me deal with I have a form of PTSD as well. Actually, I have complex PTSD. So I've sort of got like the top end of the spectrum, and for me with that, it helps keep like the flashbacks and everything like that. It also keeps my heart rate at a steady level. So then I'm not at any risk. So it's, for me, it's not just on a mental health ground, but from a physical health perspective, for myself, it helps me get through a day-to-day sort of thing. Because unfortunately, at the age of 27, I have 23 different health conditions. So unfortunately,
that's a lot. That's a lot to juggle, isn't it?
So the hobby is basically my sort of escape, helping me feel relatively normal. We'll call it. So
and I don't think there really is anything like any sort of normal that actually exists, but I understand it. I always say it kind of keeps a person on a level.
Definitely.
And I think that's really important for anybody to find. Every person should have some kind of hobby, whether it be reading, writing, painting, what we do in terms of wargaming, film. Some people are absolutely obsessed. Whatever it is, every person needs some form of escapism.
Yes, definitely.
And I think in the modern world where we can never switch off because of these, or people watching us now are probably just wanting some escapism, and here we are talking about it. But
definitely,
it's such an important topic, really. It's something that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, both professionally and within my own psyche. So I know the importance of having a few hours to sit at a desk. You get more than most, so you are very blessed in that department. I get maybe 4 hours a week if I'm lucky, but it's important no matter how much time you can get, really. So obviously you've got a lot of plans over the next 12 months to expand and do more and do things. Talk us through what some of your plans are for the next 12 months or so.
So for the next 12 months, I've actually got 2 goals. I have a 6-month goal and a 12-month. So essentially 6 months will bring me to the end of this year. I am aiming to own at least minimum 2,000 points of every Kings of War army. So that's the first plan. That's actually going really well at the minute.
I mean, you can paint it quick, so
but like for me, for like next year, so this year I'm doing everything like King's War related, doing other companies. Next year I'm going to be diving more heavier into Warlord games, so a lot of like Hell Caesar, Napoleonic, more bolt action, conflict 47. And basically it's so then once restrictions lift a bit more, I can, like, if a friend wants to do some gaming, we don't have to go to a club. If they play bolt action, I can say, oh, it's fine, I've got a couple of bolt action armies here, we'll just bust them out on the table. So really just being able to take the hobby to the next level. Ideal model count I'm looking at is about 10,000 by the end of the year. That's one of my biggest goals. So yeah, that's gonna be a fun one.
I mean, those are insane numbers. They really are. In terms of actual model count, that's, for a lot of people, that's more than a lifetime's work.
Yeah.
And considering they're not all just grey plastic as well, is
no. I work in them. So whenever I get a miniature kit, I always build it and then I at least prime it and then I go through. So that's another thing that also helps me keep myself sane instead of painting the same thing over and over and over. I've got most of my stuff, I think, apart from one army, is completely painted, and the rest of it's all in part paint build. So we'll take my Nighthaunt for an example. I've done a load of my chain rasps, and so okay, they're all at sort of like a tabletop level. Right, let's work on the Banshees. Okay, I'm bored of the Banshees. You know what? Let's work on some Sequitors. I'm bored of that. I fancy some more sci-fi sort of stuff. Okay, let's go over to 40k, do a bit of there. Bored of that, I'll go do my Magnus. Bored of that, oh, let's go to Kings of War. And now I've got the D&D miniatures as well.
And obviously that comes back to one of the questions in the rapid fire, where you know, what are you working on right now? All of it.
Yeah.
You'll work a bit on this one, and then you'll work on the next one. And you know, it's a fascinating way of working, because for it's whatever works for the individual. For me, I would find that hectic. Like I have to, like at the moment I'm working on some Howling Banshees, so I have to start on that squad and I have to finish that squad before I then start anything else.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, you can obviously pick up a bit and go, well, I'm bored of painting red now, so I'm going to go on to this where I can paint, you know, gold. And
one of my main things is to at least try and, as you said, like get a squad, at least a minimum size squad done, and then move on. So I'm always keeping new stuff coming in. And that's really basically how I cope on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think when you get to a point where you've got like multiple armies, most people have got multiple armies at this point of whatever game system they follow. It is fairly important that unless you're doing a drive on something, like when you first get an army, you want to dive into it and you want to do everything for that army. And then you kind of go, well, I've painted bright blue for however long. Now I want to try something else. So then you kind of go, oh, I'm going to go back to my Nurgle. So like I've got a piece of Nurgle here ready to go when I'm done with the Banshees, to stop that. Oh, I'm getting bored of Eldar, or I'm getting bored of it breaks it up, and I think that's really impressive.
Definitely.
But, you know, your hobby plans are fairly ambitious. Obviously, for you, there's no doubt that Twitch is going to keep growing. I think
hopefully
that's going to keep going. You know, you've got bits and pieces on YouTube as well.
Yes. So that's myself. We started that project last year. We released it on the 1st of this year, and there's myself and there's actually 16 other people. We're not all based in the UK either. Only 4 of us are.
So that's a cool, like, worldwide project. So believe it or not, I'm not the only person in Loaded Bolter. I'm one of like 6 or 7. But because a lot of those guys are working on, you know, other content that's going to be coming, things like podcasting and stuff like that. So far, the only person that can do anything in the current COVID climate is me doing these. But there are actually more of us. It's not just a one-man show.
So we've got our editor who's in Germany. We have 5 other members in America. We have a couple in Sweden. And then we have the guys that are here with myself. So there's quite a few of us.
That's really cool. Fields. Obviously, all under the one name as well. I think I think it's really, really cool how, you know, like you say, it's people from Germany, Sweden. Like I don't know anywhere that's got that. Obviously, you know, all the other kind of well-known YouTube channels or, you know, Twitch streams, stuff like that, they're all people at least in the same country, if not the same cities and areas. They tend to evolve out of play groups and gaming clubs and stuff like that. So for it to evolve as a worldwide project,
Yeah, it's quite amusing as well. 'Cause out of all those members, I've only ever met two of them, and one of them is a very good friend of mine. His mum actually used to be my landlady, so
Okay.
he's helped me out on Paris levels, and we go to the same gaming club. I mean, I have a win streak over him that he hates, and then his friend who I got to know very well. And yeah, so they're the only two guys I've met in the team on a physical sort of person level. Everyone else, it's been Discord, phone calls, webcams. So most of us are actually all content creators as well. So we don't just do the YouTube, we also run our own channels and social media. So it can be very hectic sometimes.
I don't doubt that for a second, but I think that's really cool that basically everybody's got their own project, and then you just all come under the same umbrella for certain projects and bits and pieces. I think that's really cool, because then nobody's bound to this one thing. There's, you've got lots going on. You're
There's a lot.
Very busy hobbyist. I don't think there's too many that can step up to the amount of hours kind of you put into it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So the last question that I ask everybody.
Yep.
This, I mean, I don't know how you would ever have any fucking time. Don't get me wrong. But what else keeps you sane apart from this hobby? What other sort of things have you got that you rely on?
So for myself, I run 2 Minecraft servers.
Okay.
So I do a bit of my gaming, but I'm also a Lilo and Stitch collector. So I've got a lot of the Stitch merchandise. That the Stitch side of it is something that's very close to me, because I can recognize, and with the film, it's essentially there's a lot of things in common with the film and with how my life's been. That also then goes on to with the Ohana side, that then links with all the projects and everyone we're bringing in. And it's something that myself and the team have all sort of like brought in.
Yeah. And
it doesn't matter whether you're in another country or anything, like we're still going to clash you as family. And our main goal is to build a community where there is essentially, you get bad eggs in every community.
Of course you do.
That's sort of standard nowadays. But it's trying to build a community where people aren't just there on a hobbyist level, but on a personal level as well. So essentially, myself and the mods do a check-in once a month. That's one thing we do quite a lot. And then we have a specific part where people can just come to us for emotional support, whether it's to do with, I don't know, something going wrong with them and a partner, or whether they're stuck with some financial thing. Like we've always said, we would rather people come to us so we can help them and guide them more, because especially with the way I am and with contacts I have, I can get the information by the end of the day. Or if I don't know, I can say, hey, try this website, or I don't know, speak to this person in Discord. So it's sort of like one of those things where we're trying to build a community where everyone's there for each other, regardless whether you're a mile away, 10,000 miles. And that's sort of like, for me, is how then the sort of Stitch sort of essentially association sort of came with it. And when I was able to really fully bring out like the family, and how I was able to combine my favorite Disney film and my favorite Disney character into the hobby, and it sort of went from there really. But yeah, being a massive Lilo and Stitch collector and a Minecraft gamer is what I do in my spare time when I get
it. when you get it. Well, yeah. I've seen it played. Again, I'm not much of a technology guy, so yeah. I've not played Minecraft. I don't pretend to know necessarily what that is, and I've also never seen Lilo and Stitch. I know it's one of those films that so many people have seen.
Yeah,
but I've never seen it.
I think the best one for me was I watched it with my family and a load of friends, and I watched a 62-year-old man break down and cry.
Okay, so there's a bit of emotion in there. Is it kind of?
Yeah, it's sort of like the usual way to describe it. It starts off basically somewhat so Stitch essentially is an experiment that's gone wrong. He starts causing problems, mischief, gets adopted, and the person thinks he's a dog, and he's not.
Oh, okay.
And then basically, then from there onwards, he goes on about how he found his family on his own. They're broken, but they're still good. And at the end of it, one of the most iconic scenes, spoilers, he basically turns around to the person who runs the planet he's from and goes, "Can Stitch say goodbye to my family?" And everyone just breaks down. It's actually great. It's great as well because you can watch it with your kids and stuff, and it teaches them. For me, the biggest lesson from that film was teaching everyone about family and about, regardless who you are, where you are, try and do your best to be there for everyone and support each other. And that's basically where it went from there.
And I think, I think the line you just said, I think it's gonna be for a lot of hobbyists, myself included, and I think possibly yourself included. We're broken, but we're still good.
Yeah, we're still good. Yeah.
I think that needs to get itself on a t-shirt. I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great place to leave it. And it's just for me to say, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Rose. And if you want to catch up with what Rose is doing, head over to her Twitch. They're obviously like 12 hours of it a day or whatever it is. Plus, check out the Ohana Hobby Workshop as well on YouTube. There's bits and pieces there. And, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you for joining us, and congratulations on being top.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be a right one. That is, to tell you guys. So, but yeah, thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much.